right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another edition of the Bulluminati podcast. I'm your host, Nathan Bond. Joined alongside me, as always, Seth Varnadore, and a special treat tonight as Mr. USF alumni underscore USF. Did I nail that? I butchered it.
Yeah, I go by several names, so it can be confusing.
Yeah,
a man of many
USF
names.
recruiting news specialist, newest addition to the TDS umbrella. Mr. Sean Havens has joined us this evening because, well, frankly, it's like Christmas Eve all over again. It's Christmas Eve 2.0, folks. It's the night before National Signing Day. Not a single thing was stirring, not even a mouse.
Not even a bag man.
Not well.
Actually, they probably are stirring.
To be fair, the bag men are always stirring. Let's be real here, Seth. But we've got a lot to get into. Even since we talked last week, we've had some commits, some big time commits, an actual literal giant commit. It seems like at 6'8", 330 pounds. Homeboy is massive. We'll get into that. But Sean, first time on the podcast. Tell us about yourself. Tell us about your USF background.
Okay.
What made you pick USF? I know I'm put you on the spot. We did a little show prep, and I held that from you.
Yeah. So I had kind of a weird journey. I went to UCF when I was a freshman. They didn't have the major that I liked. That I eventually went into. So I went to a community college down in Venice. State College of Florida. I went there for a year, got my AA, and then I went to USF for 3 years after that, and I was able to graduate then. And then I've been just doing USF stuff since then. So that's pretty much it.
State College of Florida, powerhouse JUCO baseball program right there.
Manatees.
Yeah, they get some flamethrowers out of there. Definitely a pitching hotbed down there for sure. Well, I appreciate you joining the team. I think everybody who's been in the Discord, if you haven't, make sure you follow us on Twitch, and then you can get an invite. Send us a screenshot of the that you follow us on Twitch, and you get invited to the Discord. Because frankly, literally, and I mean this in the nicest way possible, literally no one else is doing what we're doing right now in the lead up to signing day, and I promise you that. The amount of information that we've passed out in the last 48 hours is more than most everybody, and I'm being nice, has reported and or done regarding National Signing Day. So it's well worth it. It's free. It's free through the start of fall camp. So get in, figure out if you like it or not, and then we'll go from there. But it's been a lot of fun. There's over 100 people already in the Discord. Sean, well, let's jump into it. We've got some recent commits. I do want to start with probably the latest, I guess, commit / recommit. 2024 quarterback Marcellus Tate reaffirmed probably a couple of hours ago at this point. Yesterday, if you're listening to it on Wednesday, that he is 10,000% locked in with USF. He is not going anywhere. He's not even going to entertain any other offers. He's excited for his senior year of football and getting ready to play the college game. That's a pretty massive commitment, knowing that Travis Trickett over at Coastal was trying to get him to flip pretty hard over the last few weeks.
Yeah, I think that was obviously the biggest competitor. You know, he knew his system, I'm sure. That he was mostly recruited by him, obviously by the quarterback coach. But I had a feeling that when he was committed so early on, like he was, that it was because he was committed to the school. Obviously that isn't really a thing as much as it used to be. It's kind of more about relationships nowadays. But it does seem like, especially that early on, if they were able to accept his commitment, and, with the previous staff, how they're always saying, you can only commit if you completely shut it all down. It seemed like he did that until the new staff came in. He opened it up a little bit, got a couple offers, FAU, Coastal, that kind of stuff. But it seems like he's pretty confident with the new staff that they have. So he just decided to lock it down, which is obviously good to get, your main recruiter this early on. I'm sure he's been talking to the 23 guys and the 24 guys that they've been going after. So, I mean, I think it's definitely a good starting point for the next class. So.
I was going to say this is what Jeff Scott always dreamed of, a guy that would commit and then shut down the process.
Yeah.
It's like the monkey's paw curls. He finally got his wish.
Exactly, except now he's out of the job, and oh man, poor kid. Anyway, we talked about it last week, Seth. You, myself, and Steve, kind of about what the process would kind of look like as a new quarterback. You have a quarterback committed. It's a little bit different than any of the other positions because you want to feel comfortable in the system that's going to be coming in as the staff that recruited you gets fired and let go. It seems like both parties very much okay with what they have in each other. I think that the tape kind of speaks for itself. I think he's a very talented quarterback. I'm excited to see what it looks like. The quarterback room looks so much more impressive than it did even a year and a half ago at this point. To be fair, what Jeff Scott was able to do with, I think we could all agree Byron Brown looks like a star in the making. Gary Bohannon, whenever he comes back fully healthy, he was really starting to turn it on prior to that injury against Tulane. The quarterback room looks good. I think there'll be some processing out of some quarterbacks in the future. We'll figure out if Trey Marsh will ever play again. Neck surgery is nothing to joke at. He's got his whole life to think about going forward. So that's going to be something to watch in the spring and fall. But at least at the quarterback position, guys, I'll let you weigh in. It seems like they're steady and they're really comfortable in what their process is going to look like recruiting quarterbacks going into the future.
Yeah, I think it's a really quarterback friendly system. And obviously, guys, looking back at the past few quarterbacks that have been in the system have put up huge numbers. So when you kind of get to see that, and then you can see kind of the talent they've been able to attract a little bit of the skill positions, and we'll talk about some of those guys that are going to sign up, and really the emphasis they put on recruiting offense. I think as a quarterback, you'd have to be pretty excited. And then now you've got the added element of your quarterback coach was Brock Purdy's quarterback coach. So now you've got like this added little element kind of fresh in people's minds of, hey, look at this guy. He wasn't super talented. Look how well he's playing in the NFL. San Francisco probably thinks if they kept him healthy, they might be going to the Super Bowl. So for where he was drafted and kind of his recruiting profile, to have that guy as the coach is probably another feather in their cap. So you got Golesh, who has this great offense. You got Gordon, who's been able to do some things as a position coach. I think it adds it to a recipe of being pretty desirable for quarterbacks. And I think you kind of see that by the way you got a 2024 already locking themselves in.
Yeah. So I wanted to go back. I was watching, I think it was a couple pods ago where you guys had the depth chart with the quarterbacks that I wrote up real quick. I had Bohannon as the starter. I do think that Brown probably looked like the best quarterback just out of what we saw from him. But, you're still comparing a senior that's played at Baylor in the Big 12 championship game, against a freshman that no one had tape on. I think it'll be a lot closer than most people think. And just seeing him, at the IPF unveiling, he's the first guy up there to speak. I think they'll like that, seeing that from him. And I think until we see Byram beat him out, I still have him as the starter. But obviously, you like the depth in that room. You have Bryce Archie right from Coastal. He's coming in. He has some experience. You have Marsh with experience. You have several guys with experience. Plus, you have, hopefully a couple freshmen in there that you can build up for in the future.
Well, Nathan, I got to ask you, how many of these guys would have started in 2020?
All of them? I think Ryan Bolduc would have started in 2020 at this point.
We got at least a shot. We got one game.
For sure. I mean, good Lord. I mean, even I think at some point in 2019, both those the final year Charlie Strong toward the end of the year, and then 2020 it was a complete catastrophe at the quarterback position. I would have felt so much more comfortable with any of these guys starting than the people that actually played in 2019 or 2020. So we're in a step in the right direction. And Sean, you mentioned there could be some guys at the quarterback position coming in for the 2023 class. Let's jump into it. We're 12 hours away from National Signing Day kicking off. I think the first guy who announced that USF may be on the radar, I think he's announcing at 9:30. What are you expecting for tomorrow? And I will kind of go through, list them off who you think's committable, and then we'll get your confidence rankings.
Do we want to go through the two guys that we're pretty sure committed that aren't going to be scholarship guys for sure? Do you want to go through them first before we get to tomorrow? Or you want to get right into signing day?
Yeah, we can do both.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's get the guys who actually committed first.
So the guys that have committed, obviously, it kind of is confusing with this staff as far as preferred walk-ons versus actual scholarship guys. Oh. Like you have the kicker, Ippolito, however you say that. He's a kicker. He did receive an offer, so you would think that he is probably on scholarship. Usually what me and Stieg look for is the committed edit. That's a good sign that they probably are on scholarship, because you're using one of your staffers to create this edit. You don't usually see that for someone that's coming in as a walk-on. So you have him. You have the tight end Gerard Ademo out of Texas. I think he looks like a tight end. I know some people have talked about possibly putting him on the defensive line. But
I'll throw up some Ademo while you talk. Yeah, he's definitely a long limb. You can tell he's got long arms, pretty athletic dude. I saw that on as well on Instagram. Somebody called him a D lineman. He's only got tight end stuff, but he's got one of those bodies that, like, if you told me you're going to turn him into an edge, I'd say, okay, that makes sense. So,
like a Chris Carter type.
You can see he's got long arms, blocks well, pretty good athlete, and he's listed at 6'5", 215, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So.
Yep.
Yeah.
Here's a look at him. Interesting guy. I think he's only played football for 2 years is what I read about him. So he's pretty raw, pretty new to the game. But, is he kind of – do you think it was between him and that kid from Kansas? Is that what it seems like to you? It seemed like to you, or is one kind of in place of the other?
Yeah, so they did have Dunbar. I'm guessing that's who you're referring to, that Aquan Dunbar. Yeah, I feel like it was probably an either or. It's kind of like a longer wide receiver / tight ends. Probably move them around a little bit, but it seems like they're similar players. And I guess they just went after whichever one they could get on board.
Yeah, I like this kid. They moved him around. You'll see him in line. You'll see him flexed out. He's definitely got some flexibility and some athletic ability. And if he's only played 2 years, then he's really scratching the surface probably. So going back and looking at Dunbar, he was probably a little bit quicker, but not by a ton. I didn't think Dunbar was a burner by any means. So I thought these two are definitely kind of maybe looking in the same mold here. And then the next big commit was, a really big commit, right?
Drew Perez.
Yeah. Talk about him for a second. I'll get his highlights.
Yeah, so on 247, I believe they have him as 6'8", 330. He was a Colorado commit. He had committed to the tight ends coach that came to USF. So he was committed there. Obviously, they had the huge change when they brought in their new staff. So it seems like he kind of got processed out along with the tight end coach. So which is obviously kind of unique because he isn't a tight end. But he was recruited by the tight end coach, and it seemed like he followed him over here. So they obviously must have a good relationship from their time that they were together, where he's committed at Colorado.
Yeah, he was a casualty of Coach Prime, and he plays at a really, really prestigious program in Texas, South Lake Carroll. I think they've won 8 or 9 state championships, a bunch of them kind of in the 2000s. This is where I think Chase Daniel went here, Greg McElroy. They had like a run of quarterbacks. I believe
they've always
South Lake
had
Carroll,
really good quarterbacks out
that
there.
were D1, where it's like almost every year they're spitting out a D1 quarterback, or like 5 or 6 in a row, all ended up being Power 5 quarterbacks. So definitely a prestigious program. So anytime you can get somebody from there and kind of establish a pipeline, it's great. But I mean, you can see him; the dude is massive.
Yeah, he is.
So that relationship was with was it Clay Patterson?
Clay Patterson. Mm-hmm.
So you're able to carry that over, and it wasn't like it wasn't like he just followed him right away. He got a ton of interest, didn't he? After kind of
he had
Colorado?
the top 5. Had Tulane, Texas State,
Tulsa,
and
San Diego State as well.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, he definitely had other interest, but obviously Colorado was basically doing a culling of their entire commitment list, trying to flip that roster. So I do think he is what you would consider more of a Power 5 player that kind of slipped through the cracks just based off of his size and how he moves.
Yeah, he's not just you can see he's not a slug or anything. He's moving. And I'm sure, and one thing I've always heard from college coaches is that when you get kids out of Texas, they're a lot closer to finished products in terms of technique and things like that than, say, a kid out of Florida, because they pay coaches a lot more in Texas, so the coaching's a little bit better there. So these are guys that can come in and play a little quicker. Now, maybe his ceiling's not quite as high as a more raw guy, but he's a big dude that might be able to come in and contribute in his first couple of seasons on campus. I mean, he seems to have the size.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah, Buddy is freaking massive, for sure.
This is a 7
offensive lineman.
At least if you're counting walk-ons, it's got to be at least 13 to 14 as well.
And that's the other thing. That's the other thing recently. They've gotten some nice, before we kind of get to the guys they're still after and we may see tomorrow, they've gotten some nice PWO kids in too, which is really important. Mm-hmm. And a lot of those seem to be local kids. I know they got a receiver from the Fort Myers area, right? And then a lineman.
Smith.
You got a PWO receiver that's running 10.9 in the 100 meters. That's pretty good.
Yeah, he's out of Lehigh Senior in Fort Myers, it looks like.
Yes. So
they called him an athlete, so he must be a two-way player as well.
Yeah, but if you can get that kind of speed, and that's the one thing, and we'll talk about that, I think, as we transition into what they're looking at tomorrow. This staff definitely likes verified speed. We've seen them offer a ton of guys that run track. And there's one, and when we put his highlights up, he looks like he's moving in fast forward, and everybody else is in slow motion. So we'll get to that, and we'll get to him in a second. But I think that's it on the guys that have committed recently.
Yeah, you have the other preferred walk-ons as well. I don't know if you want to go into those.
Yeah, bring them up.
So you got the Ryan Warren, offensive lineman from Zephyr Hills Christian. So that's more of a local guy. And then you got Cole Dillon. It looks like he's a DB. He's listed as a safety out of Cardinal Newman. It looks like he had, according to 247, he had 7 or 8 preferred walk-on options. and he decided to stick with USF. I know the previous staff was interested in him as well. So it looks like he stuck through it and was able to get that spot.
Perfect. Let's transition to tomorrow. 12 hours away here. I want to do. Who are you most excited about, and then who are you you absolutely think your confidence is 8.5 or higher on this guy is for sure committing tomorrow to the Bulls. Sean, who's the top guy on your list in that criteria?
Ooh, it's close. I would probably say the quarterback, that Israel Carter out of Centennial. I would probably go with him. He has been posting a lot of USF stuff on his Instagram. Even after his visit, he was still posting stuff, and he is pretty legit.
Yeah, we've got his film on right here. When I first threw it on, it took about 4 plays. You're like, okay, this guy's got something. Arizona State commit for a long time, right? The staff turnover seems like he got slow played or kind of almost even no played by the new staff. My guess, and you can tell me what you think. My guess is he's listed at 6'1". My guess is he's under 6 feet tall. Do you think that's possible? Would you think that might be the case? Because I don't know why. You can see here. He's a guy that split time in high school, it seemed like, with another quarterback, but put up really good numbers. I think he really low interception numbers, high touchdown totals. You see here, dude is athletic.
Oh my gosh, buddy is scooting.
Yeah, I mean, he's athletic. He throws a nice ball. It's I put today in the Discord, just kind of doing more investigation on him. On 3 has him listed as the number 20 quarterback in the country. Mm-hmm. Higher than FSU's quarterback commit and higher than Miami's quarterback commit. So according to On 3, if he commits tomorrow, USF has the highest rated quarterback commit in the state of Florida. Mm-hmm. And you can kind of you can see how this guy might be fun. It definitely seems like Gabriel was a decent runner when Golesh was at UCF. Mm-hmm. Having that running element from Hooker, I think, has really opened some stuff up to him and his eyes. So I think he likes to find those dual threat guys. It seems that's what he's been looking for in the recruiting.
Right.
And he definitely found it with this guy. If they get him signed in, I would think. Watch this here. Just catching the running back there. This dude is. He's a dude. So to kind of find him, have him kind of on the radar and close this thing pretty quick. And Sean, you feel pretty confident that they're going to close this one. It definitely seems like it. And I know there's even been a crystal ball for him. Not crazy high confidence, but he was crystal balled to USF, I believe, too, right?
Yeah, it was one of the 247 West Coast guys that I'm sure follows him. Yeah, I think that it definitely seems like, just looking at their board on 247, that they're really trying to go after Jaden Rashada, the Florida one-time signee. And I think, at least what they think, they're trying to process him out to kind of give Rashada the inside track and getting that quarterback role over there, because I'm sure he needs some assurances to go over to Arizona State.
Yeah, it's it definitely seems like I think they might have thought he was going to sign in the first period, and when he didn't, he said something to the effect of, "No, I haven't had an in-home visit yet. I want to wait till my in-home visit with the new staff." He's like, "I've met them; they're nice, but I want them to visit me." And I don't know that that's ever happened. So it definitely seems like they're kind of moved off him for whatever reason. But you can see here the guy can play. I wonder if he's a little smaller than he's listed, but still, especially in this conference, we've seen guys that aren't the tallest dudes that are athletic and can move, be really productive quarterbacks.
Yeah, I mean, you can see it even watching Alabama. They've had a run of sub 6 foot quarterbacks, and they've made it work. So
Yeah, Bryce is no behemoth, that's for sure.
yeah, him and Tua.
Yeah, absolutely. And what was kind of dawned on me watching these highlights, and maybe you guys have kind of felt the same, especially for Golesh kind of finding that other gear in his offense with the running element with Hendon Hooker. This is literally like the same kind of offense I would run in NCAA 14. Like I would run it, spread it out, have a fast quarterback. I would never recruit a pocket passer ever just for the element. And he's just taking that approach and put it into real life, and it freaking works. And I think we're definitely seeing that happen more and more as college football goes that route. I think pocket passers, I think unless you're literally Tom Brady, you're DOA. If you can't move around in the pocket and get you 5, 6, 7 yards, even just at the threat of it, you won't be as successful. I think you see it. I mean, shit, even Brock Purdy was pretty mobile in the NFL when everybody thought he was athletic, he was fine, but didn't expect him to be this athletic and mobile. Joe Burrow can still get you 5, 6, 7 yards on a scramble. It just opens up an entire offense, an entire different playbook, especially at this level when tackling is less than ideal and not great. That you get someone who's mobile and can make a guy miss, and instead of a sack or a 2-yard gain, it turns into 25 or a 70-yard touchdown run.
Yeah, and we saw that a little bit with Timmy McClain, but he's not anywhere near as polished as this is Israel Carter we're talking about. So he seems a little bit more polished. I don't know if he is. These are all high school highlights, but like I said, he's been some recruiting services see him as a really big time player. So to kind of get him, this late and kind of find him, I think they offered him at the end of December 28th or something like that, and get him on campus. And it sure seems like they're crushing these visits. Sean, have you heard anything about just the visits? Because they have seemingly a pretty high official visit to commit or sign ratio right now.
Yeah, they've definitely been. It seems like they've been pretty good on that. It's also hard to tell who exactly is on campus, but it seems like the guys that leak out that they're saying, "Hey, this guy was on campus," and every time we hear that, it seems like they definitely have USF at the top. Most of them, at least. Yeah. I have heard that there's rumors out there that his visit process, the entire visit, how it's operated and everything is a lot smoother than the previous staff. So I guess that is a good sign going forward with him, because I know a lot of people, even when Jeff Scott was here, said that he ran it pretty well. So if you're taking any steps even further beyond that, that's probably a good sign.
Agreed. And I'll say this. So I've talked to this. Gosh, this must have been 2017, 2018. I was talking to Charlie Strong at the time, and so he was head coach still, and there was still the ongoing debate about whether the OCS or the IPF was more important. And he flat out said, I need something to show the recruits right now. And the IPF, the indoor facility, is most important because every other team recruiting against USF at the time was saying, hey, go ask USF about their facility. And they'd say, Coach, I was at their facility. Say, no. That's their athletic department. Where's their facility? Where's their football facility? And Coach, they don't have one. That's the thing that I kind of harped on over the last 5 years is they need to get the IPF done. And once they've gotten it done and they've been able to utilize it and show off that they're actually moving in the right direction with this stuff, there's legitimate plans for the stadium as well. It really starts to help and kind of put a vision together instead of this abstract, oh yeah, we're trying to do this and we're hoping to get this. Like there's the actual tangible, hey, we've completed this project. Now we're moving on to the next project, which is the stadium. And by God, if we're not in by 2026, when you put your senior year or your redshirt senior year, or if you end up like Stanley Clairvaux and play 7 years, you'll be in the stadium. So that's the biggest thing, I think, as well as having the visits run smoothly, is there's something tangible. You're not just showing them Ray J and putting on the green lights and it's all well and cool. There's actually something on campus that they can claim that's their own. And once the OCS is done, at least when there's, shovels in the ground, it's actually going to tap into something that USF hasn't been able to tap into in what we're going on 26 years at this point. It doesn't mean it's going to translate into wins, but it can help.
Well, they're definitely taking advantage. If you look at the junior days, it's all in the indoor, right? Like, or a majority of it. It's in they're showing that thing off for sure.
Yeah, they were definitely showing off the indoor, showing off the locker rooms. I saw there were some pictures walking around the locker rooms, kids taking pictures, 4 stars that are committed to Tennessee taking pictures. So, that's obviously impressive to them, just based off what you see them posting on Twitter and everything. Like it's a good facility, but it's also, I would say, comparable to some of the top indoor facilities, just because of how new it is. I mean, you could look at those pictures. I mean, it's like pearl white, those walls. It's just, it's nice.
All right, let's talk about what I think is maybe my favorite guy that may be signed tomorrow. Give us a rundown on Jaquan Smith while I get his film pulled up.
Okay. So he is listed as an athlete on most sites. They see him probably as a slot receiver. He's out of Cajon, California. He's listed as a 3-star, but as a high 3-star, similar to Israel Carter. And he has, height 5'10", 175.
And most importantly, he ran a 10,500 meters.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
For reference, Jimmy Horn ran a 10.6. So if you want a reference of this guy's speed, this guy is crazy explosive. And you'll see here on the film, returning kicks. He definitely gives you that element. Just think about the offense and how spread out and wide open it's going to be. And now he's your slot receiver. All right, are you putting a safety on him? Are you going to bump a linebacker out over top? This dude's legit. Like, you see him outrunning angles here like it's nothing. The dude is crazy explosive. To go into California and get both these guys would be just a coup, in my opinion. And he seems pretty likely as well, doesn't he, Sean?
Yeah, I would say it's about the same as with Carter. It seems like they're both USF leans based off of what you see from crystal balls and stuff like that. And obviously they both had their official visits. They both seem to like it. I mean, it seems like they are probably what I'd say are the top 2 most likely to commit.
And they would be the top 2 high school commits, wouldn't they? Of the entire class?
For this class, they would. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So Jaquan Smith, his final 3. So just for reference, so Israel Carter, he had been committed to Arizona State for a long time, so Pac-12 Power 5 commit. Jaquan Smith's final 3 is, correct me if I'm wrong, Washington, Utah, and USF.
Yep.
Correct.
Right. Yeah. 2 teams that could have played one did, and the other could have played in the Rose Bowl last year in USF. That's a pretty good job identifying and finding these dudes, and then doing a good job getting them on campus and selling them on division. Because if you get these guys in the boat, man, that's pretty big time, in my opinion. I mean, both these guys are big time athletes. The quarterback can play, and then this dude's just crazy explosive, as you see on the highlight tape.
Yeah, I put on his tape Probably like a week ago. And I was like, wow, I can't believe this guy is available, because that speed it's nuts.
Yeah. Now there's another guy that's visited. So those two have visited, and we feel pretty good on them, or at least all signs seem to be pointing to those two guys signing with USF tomorrow. One guy that's really up in the air is the Serial Riles from University Christian in Jacksonville. He visited USF, but he also visited ECU, and then Indiana got his last visit. Where do you think he's at? What would you kind of put a percentage at for him? I think you might have posted in the Discord from like the 24/7 team sites, or maybe somebody that kind of each site. The USF site didn't post anything on it, but the other two, Indiana and ECU site, both thought that they both felt like he may be coming to their schools, but didn't rule out any of the others. It was kind of seems like it's really up in the air for him. Do you have any insight there?
Yeah,
or any feel?
Going into the official visits, I thought he would be a USF lean, and then going into those visits, it seemed like he really liked that ECU visit. They like him as a tight end, and then he's also being recruited, like you said, from Indiana and USF. It seems like they both want him as like an edge, outside linebacker role. But at this point, it just seems like all three schools are really confident that they're going to get him. The other two sites are saying that he still isn't sure where he's going to go, but just following the Twitter likes, which is something I do, and the Twitter follows, it definitely seems like the staff thinks they have a shot with him. So.
And what is, for those three guys, do you know off the top of your head, what is their what is the schedule there now? So I think Riles is at 9 a.m. Eastern, right?
Yes.
Right.
Riles, 9 a.m. Israel Carter, 11 a.m. And then Jaquan Smith, 4:30.
Okay. So we'll have a pretty good idea. And those guys, didn't at one point they were going to commit later in the week. A couple of them, they all moved it up to signing day.
Yeah, I believe Riles moves his up a week, I believe. He was going to commit on I believe it was commit on the 2nd and then sign on the 9th or something like that. And he moved it up, and now he's just signing. And then Jaquan Smith, he was going to sign on Thursday at 7:30, and he moved that up to tomorrow at 4:30.
All right, so we can all watch out for those happening live. Are there any guys, and those are kind of the three biggest ones. Perez was a guy that's sitting out there, but he's already committed. He's kind of a guy we thought might wait till signing day, but he's committed. Is there anybody out there? I know there's been a couple names thrown out. I think Andrew Ivins threw out a couple names. He's a pretty good follow if you're for Florida recruiting. Anybody that you're kind of maybe a surprise to jump in that kind of hasn't been talked about a ton until this week?
Yeah, I have a couple names. So one that Andrew threw out is DJ Holmes. He is a edge out of Pahokee High School. It looks like he was rated as a 4-star on On3. I'm not sure if it's been updated since then, but on my spreadsheet it has him as a 4-star. He has looks like 12 Power 5 offers. He's 6'3", 230. I'm not sure if he's a backup plan, maybe if Riles goes elsewhere, or if they would take both of them. I'm not sure exactly what the scholarship count is, if they have room for both of them, but it seems like he's a guy that is a possible option.
Okay. And what's the other name you've heard?
And then there's another one that me and Steeg have been following. There's Tyree Kelly. He's a wide receiver that's committed to Coastal currently. He isn't listed on any recruiting sites, so he is kind of difficult to find. information on. But he is committed to Coastal at the moment, and it seems like they're at least interested in that option. So we'll see what happens there, as well as I'll throw in Devin Hyatt as well. Out of IMG, he still hasn't committed anywhere. He was considered a Power 5 guy at one point. I believe he was out of Louisiana or something like that before IMG. He's
brother to
seems
Jalen
like
Hyatt, right? Jalen Hyatt, who played for Golesh at Tennessee, his younger brother, correct?
Yeah. So there's obviously probably a good relationship there. I'm not sure if he's signing or not, but he does seem like another. Just throwing out some other names that are possibilities. It does seem like he's a possibility. So.
Nate, what are you going to do if they sign a 4-star receiver from IMG?
So, I mean, honestly, nothing would surprise me with the staff. Honestly, at this point, like win on the field and winning cures all. But I mean, this transition class is it's going to be it could very well end up being one of the top 50, 60 classes in the entire country when all things are said and done tomorrow, if everything breaks exactly right for USF.
Yeah,
I know that's a big old if, but
based on the 24/7 class calculator, which I think might be off, but I think regardless, you're going to get a pretty good class with the overall with the transfers they've added, with the high-end high school guys they've added, because Carter and Smith are both pretty high-end 3-star, like borderline 4-star guys. So that's big time.
So one thing I like too, by the way, is it seems like they're going pretty heavily into high school, considering they just took over. I know a lot of staffs that are just taking over, a school. They like to go transfer heavy, try and get a good start per se. It seems like they're doing it the right way, in quotations. Taking in high school guys, getting them into the program, getting them into the weight room and everything. And I think it'll have some benefits here in the next couple of years.
Yeah, I think you're right. The high school route seems like the best way to build up a program. I think it's the quick fix, right? If you just go transfer portal, I think that's what Jeff Scott kind of got lost in the sauce in that regard. But some of his best players were guys coming out of high school. Donovan Jennings is still on the roster. Dustin Hall was a top-notch offensive lineman who's now going to be at Duke. Brad Cecil was a high school kid. Xavier Weaver was a high school kid. Brian Battie. The list kind of goes on. And the impact transfer guys were kind of few and far between. Jimmy Horn, I don't want to forget him as he goes off to Colorado, and wherever Weaver ends up, I think it's going to be Colorado. I think them teaming up together at Colorado just makes all the sense in the world. But your most impactful guys, especially on the offensive side of the ball, were high school recruits, and getting them into the system, brainwashing them for all intents and purposes into the hashtag USF way, or whatever you want to call it, straight out of high school. I think that's going to be a big benefit. And then you sprinkle in the transfers. Golesh did a good job of finding some impact guys who have multiple years left to kind of impact the program going forward, 2024, 2025. But yeah, go heavy high school and see where the chips might fall. I think we've had discussions with some folks kind of around the program that they relied way too heavily on the transfers, didn't let the true freshmen, the high school kids, take their lumps and grow from there. They just kept trying to plug and play transfers, and it just never translated, obviously, into wins. Otherwise, Jeff Scott would still be here.
Yeah, you want to have, as a coach, you want to have, like, the term bump class is that second class, right? The first full class, the second class. And why is that important? It's because that's going to be the class that's starting to come of age when you're in, like, your third season, your third season of coaching. And that's when you kind of want those early recruits to be coming of age and kind of peaking. To tradition now, obviously time seems to be condensed a little bit more now, but I think it's still relevant. Like, you want to sign guys that you can develop and then use the portal. I think the best strategy, use the portal to fill holes in previous recruiting misses, or, if there's just a guy that comes along that can really help your team out, you obviously take him. But to rely on it solely is you're at mercy of other programs and the whims of other people. You're the whims of maybe somebody getting a good NIL offer. You got to kind of develop your team, and going through the high school ranks is the way to go. Sean, with that in mind, what have you thought kind of overall about the new staff in terms of recruiting and being on the trail? Is it seems to be pretty good return so far? Or what are your thoughts on them kind of as a staff, a recruiting staff, and what have you liked from them so far that you've seen?
Yeah, so they definitely have a different philosophy on recruiting, it seems like. It seemed like they spent the first week out recruiting in the Bay Area. Then the second week, it seemed like they kind of went around Florida, some of the bigger schools, sent out a couple offers. Then they went to Georgia for a week. They spent some time sending out some Georgia offers. I mean, a lot of it we still have to wait and see as far as what's their priority. Are they going to prioritize a certain area? Are they going to prioritize, with Jeff Scott, it was always culture. We want to bring in the right culture. Do you want to go after culture guys? Do you want to go after size and speed guys? They've already gone into Texas. They've already gone into California, or they're trying to go into California at least. So it seems like they're just going after the guys they think will fit the system, which I think will probably have good returns. Obviously, you want to see it on the field as well, and we'll really see how this class comes together in the future. But yeah, it's hard to tell, but it seems like they're just going after, height, weight, speed, guys that fell through the cracks at other schools, Power 5 schools. But it definitely seems like they're aggressive on the trail, which is something I questioned with the last staff. It seemed like with the last staff, a lot of times they would just wait and see what happens. And we'd have a, 8-man class, and they take a couple guys, and then they go in the transfer portal and see what's in there. I like to see the aggressiveness. Already have a couple 24 commits. They've sent out a ton of offers for 24, 25, 26. They're definitely starting those relationships, which is probably a good idea, because I'm not sure how the relationships were with Scott towards the ends, considering you would have to think the high school coaches saw his reliance on the transfer portal to fill the gaps. You would think that would get in their minds, but we'll see what happens there in the future.
I want to kind of address Mr. Klutt. Seth, can you pull that up and I'll read it? Are you guys not going to talk about the lack of defensive players? So I was reading, I can't remember what it was, and forgive me, but USF is returning, I think, 8 of 11. I think it
was the Ivans piece.
The Ivans post.
I think he talked about that.
Returning like 8 of their 11 primary guys on defense next season. So here's the I guess rock in the hard place, right? Like, the defense was terrible. I think terrible is probably a nice way to put it. They were atrocious, god awful, a complete abomination for what they did last season.
See, it's not hyperbole to say they were the worst defense in the country.
They were quite literally 131 out of 131. Yeah. So I think their thought process is, All right. Well, get a different defense in a different scheme, different coach, a fresh start, a fresh slate after just 2 years of just atrocious play, 3 years really of just terrible defense. At some point, things have got to click in. Plus, you brought in some transfer guys. You brought some edge rushers in. You brought in Jarvis Lee, the cornerback. You brought in Tuffy Bird from DeMatha. So there is some guys in. I do agree. They definitely went offense heavy for this class. And, I mean, screw it. If you know that your defense kind of sucks, you're going to have to outscore the opposing team anyway. So why not get as many electric guys as possible in and figure it out as you move along.
And I think if
the
you
G5
look
level, the offense wins championships, right?
Yeah. And you look and see where like your most attrition was this year and maybe next year. A lot of that's going to be on the offensive side of the ball. I mean, you've already seen a ton of receivers leave, so they had to replenish that. You had I think 4 ended up getting the 6th year to Jennings, but going into last year, 4 of the 5 starters on the offensive line were seniors, right? And then Dustin Hall transferred, so all 5 of your opening day starters theoretically could have gone. So you obviously want to put some investment into the offensive line area. Quarterback, obviously, if let's say Marsh never gets healthy, and next year Bohannon graduates. Well, if you didn't go out and get what you've got, you would have 2 scholarship quarterbacks potentially on the roster. So I think part of it is necessity. But they did bring in some guys defensively in the portal. I think also they're counting on a little bit the scheme change, especially up front. I think that's where most people are concerned. Why didn't they bring in more up front? I think 2 things. And now it could just be that they weren't able to get the quality guy they needed, so they didn't take it. And they're, like Nate said, they're just going to say, well, you know what? Last year they were 30th in offense and 131st in defense. If we can get the defense to 100 and the offense to 10, how many more games can we win? That could be some of the calculus. But the other part is when I think they're going to be an odd front defense. So some of the guys you had playing end last year, like a Tramel Logan, he seems to have beefed up enough where he could play like the 5 tech. He could play like the guy over the tackle in the odd front. And so you don't need quite as many like 350-pound dudes. You don't need as many of those if you're just going to play a 0 nose. So if you're just going to play a guy over the center, well, maybe I have 3 guys that can go there. Well, maybe 3 is enough. But that'll kind of remain to be seen. And the other thing is they're not while they're in it for a few guys tomorrow. It's not like they're signing 25, 28. High school players. They're leaving they're going to have some scholarships open, I believe, and go out and attack the spring portal as well. So they'll get a chance, I think, to see what they have on the roster in spring, see where they really need to add. And then kind of the part of that we need to remember, I think, and it kind of got lost a little bit just because you get to the end of the year and the defense didn't seem to be great regardless of who was playing for most of the season. But you get to the end of the year, you're like, man, we don't have any depth here. Well, you also had like a ton of injuries. So you're going to get improvement on the defense just because, knock on wood, hopefully you're healthier there. You've got some guys that they expected to be really big contributors like Will Jones. Well, maybe he wasn't ready to come off that ACL in 1 year. Maybe 2 years off of it, he'll perform a lot better and be the guy they thought he was going to be when they talked about him being the best player on the defense 2 years ago. And even a little bit last year, right? So maybe just health will help them out a little bit there. But like Sour Apples is here, they don't need to be great. They just if you can get to mediocre, you're probably having a really successful season.
Yeah, and I wanted to point out too, because I have been getting a lot of questions on Twitter and message boards and stuff like that. Why aren't they going after the defense? The issues were on the defense. We had this, pretty good offense comparatively, but you got to remember you lost Petit, you lost Weaver, you lost Horn, you lost a couple of depth pieces and Dollison. You have 2 injured quarterbacks. You lost, I believe, 4 or 5 offensive linemen. So, they were a good unit last year, but they're also almost all gone. So you do have to still rebuild that unit. The defense, I think they still could take a couple pieces on the defense. I know a lot of people have questions about the defensive line. They probably will have to get those nose tackles probably to gain a good 10, 15 pounds. Probably Bags, Cheney, whoever is going to be in that spot, because they are, 290 to 295 right now, and you do want them a little bit heavier than that. But they do have the numbers on defense. You just want to see the improvement there. They lost a couple pretty good linebackers, but they've brought in a few linebackers, outside linebackers to replace them. So I mean, if you look at the numbers, I have posted the numbers out there a couple of times. They do have the numbers that they need on defense. They just need to produce better. They need to tackle better. You just got to take the guys that you have, especially taking over a brand new team. You just got to see the pieces, how they work together. If you need to go into the portal after the spring, you can always do that. And you'll know where the issues are, and you can address those going into next year.
And I think you've got the scholarship count. How many do they have right now before signing it tomorrow? I know you have kind of a range or where you think.
Yeah, so I have a range because there is a couple guys that we're not 100% sure on. You got Atkins, who originally was a walk-on. He was placed on a 1-year scholarship, but we don't know if that was renewed. So I have between 3 and 6 scholarship spots. It's probably somewhere between 4 and 5, and I'd imagine they take, probably 3 guys here. So they'll have a couple spots to play with. And I'm sure some guys will transfer out after the spring ball once they see, hey, there's a new staff that came in, and I'm still stuck in the depth chart, and they'll decide to go elsewhere, and, you can replace them as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we kind of wind down, and we'll say we'll have a full recap tomorrow night as well. We're full out on this thing. We've had it kind of covered for the last month and a half since early signing day. We'll have it covered for National Signing Day tomorrow. Final thoughts. We mentioned 3 or 4 guys that are possibilities: Jaquan Smith, Izzy Carter, Cyril Riles, a couple maybe reach candidates. I'll ask this question and we can get out of here. What's a successful day for you guys tomorrow? Hitting on 1 of 3, hitting on 2 of 3, all of them. What do you want to see from this staff to kind of propel this program forward as we're basically starting tomorrow, basically a month out from spring ball?
So I would say successful would be landing Smith and Carter. I think getting someone else, what you can call a surprise, I would say that would be over the top, and that would be a great day. But I would say Smith and Carter, that would be what I would be hoping for going into tomorrow.
Yeah, I remember when we were talking like 4 weeks ago, we were thinking, it's going to be a really quiet signing day in February. They're probably not going to take many guys, but they ended up really cranking it up. I thought it was a big success just to get some of these guys on campus, get them on officials, kind of turn these around really fast. So I think nobody wants to hear that, but I think they've already been somewhat successful. If they sign 1 of the 3 tomorrow that we talked about, 1 of Carter, Smith, and Riles, I'd feel pretty good. If they sign both Carter and Smith, I think I'd feel really good about where this class finished, because those would be your 2 highest high school guys kind of coming on within the last month out of nowhere. You go and kind of snag them out of California. That would be a great sign for the future, in my opinion.
Yeah, agreed. I think 2 of the 3 is probably it's just a great day. Anything extra is just absolute gravy and a good sign for the future. At least again, got to win on the field, but it starts with recruiting and it honestly ends with recruiting. But boy, howdy, win some freaking games, and nobody will bat an eye if you miss out on one of these guys. Just win games, have fun doing it, be exciting on offense, be not piss poor, atrocious on defense.
Not last.
Hashtag not last on defense. And you've got a fun team heading into 2023 with the pieces that are coming in and pieces that are coming back. But with that, Sean, I appreciate you jumping on. It was great to have you. Your insight. You've been a fantastic addition to the depth chart for us, and excited for it. Once again, guys, make sure you follow us on Twitch. Yeah, I'm sure you guys are. If you're tuning in, listening, you probably already do. But if you're not, follow us on Twitch. Send us a screenshot of you following us. You get into the Discord for free through fall camp. And the recruiting nuggets that we're getting, the inside stuff we get from the other sports, you're not going to get it literally anywhere else. Make sure you do that. It's all for free for now. And man, we're getting there. We're getting there, Heath.
Like get in the Discord. Sean and Steeg have had some of these names like 2 weeks before they commit, way before you see them anywhere else. I know we had a few names in the Discord. Just going around and looking at some of the other paid sites. Didn't even have them until like a week and a half after Sean put them up in the Discord. So we're kind of on. Sean's got us on the cutting edge here of USF recruiting. So if you want that, if that's what you're interested in with your subscription, join us in the Discord right now. It's free, and you could be privy to a lot of good info. And we've also got guys like the Live Oak in there who does a lot of great stuff regarding the school and some of the process, and it will probably be a great resource as we get towards on-campus stadium things. And then you've got your TDS crew that's been around for a while. So Absolutely. A lot of fun. We've got a lot of great channels, a lot of different things to talk about in there, not just sports. So a good little community brewing. So join us there on Discord. It's a lot of fun, and we've got really good info.
Absolutely. Again, Sean, appreciate you coming on,
Thank you.
Sharing your insight. Seth, as always, you do a bang up job. Love you, buddy. And listen, I mean, the Discord it's legit. The info's legit. And
Andrew wouldn't lie to you.
Andrew definitely wouldn't lie to you. It's the best way to kill your day while at work. We had Royal Rumble stuff over the weekend in Discord, music, games, food, travel. We have a travel channel. It's not just USF football. It's literally where a community comes to talk and figure out what to do, where to
get brunch,
best brunch places, food recs, drink recommendations, everything. It's all in one Discord channel, and you're getting it for free right now. Best place to do it. But again, thanks for tuning in. Seth, thank you again. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow, probably about the same time, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard. But with that, thanks for tuning in to another edition of the Bulluminati podcast. Go Bulls.
Go Bulls.
Go Bulls.